What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Contractor Secrets Podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with the one and only Jason Paris of Paris Painting. Now, this guy is operating at optimum speed. Such a great interview. I mean, if you don't have a notepad, get one. If you are driving listening to this, listen to it when you get home. This guy is taking painting to another stratosphere, and it's such an awesome conversation. So I'm super excited for you to jump in on this and kind of pick up some of the really just the dynamic of what an organization looks like when it's operating at such a high level. Honored to have Jason on this podcast, and even more honored to have you listen to it. So I'm super excited for you, and that episode starts right now. The big question you need to ask yourself every day is, do I own a job or do I own a business? And unfortunately, the majority of contractors out there own a job. That's right, they're a slave to their own business. But the other side of the fence is so much greener, it's so much better, and that's when you're finally fully in control of your destiny, your freedom, your time. And that's what Contractor Secrets is about. It's about taking back our time, building a business with systems, standards, values, procedures, putting yourself in the driver's seat. And that's what it's about. So I'm excited. I'm happy to have you here. Let's dive into the Contractor Secrets Podcast. All right. What is going on, everyone? I'm here with Jason Paris. He is with Paris Painting in Minnesota. The banner below is the big topic of conversation. Really, we bring on individuals that are just absolutely dominating in our field, so we can hopefully learn a little bit. And Jason has been in our group here, in the Painting Contractors group, for those of you in that, sharing some nuggets of wisdom. And it's really just nice to have someone like that willing to share. So Jason, welcome to my podcast. And I want to start off, man. We just want to get right to the meat and potatoes. 1,600 houses. Okay. How does somebody accomplish that? And I'm not going to give you such a broad question. Really, yep. I just like to know, take us down to the fundamentals, man. Clearly, you don't have any paint on you. What is your day to day, and how do you manage such volume, man?
Got it. Yeah. It's been a while since I've had paint on me, but I think that's a good question. It can get granular or it can get meta. And I'll start with the meta. So meta, okay. It's obviously not any individual person's output. It's a team of people performing at a very high level. To do that, you have to take everything that is intuition and turn it into a process, everything that is recall and turn it into reference, right? Without those two things, you get really funneled on specific people. Once you go into process and reference, then you can really scale through teams of people. So it's not like
let me stop sauce. You right there, Jason.
Yeah.
Intuition, recall.
Sorry, okay. Intuition into process, recall into reference.
Okay, so talk about that a little bit, because that's what I want to get down to the gritty here. So tell me about that little formula you just gave us right there, and how important that formula is. Break that down, because something like that, you glanced over it, because you're just like, that's part of who we are.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that.
So that's kind of the process of professionalizing a company, right? You start out as a founder. If you're going to get through startup, you have to be really good at a lot of things and be very gritty and be willing to work really hard. And so typically you'll thrive off of intuition, your intuition ability. You just know what to do. You know what to do next. You know how to bid houses. You know how to manage projects. You know how to manage client relationships. You know what to market. You know all these things. Yeah. And then as far as communication flow between the different functions, it's all recall, because you are the communication or you are the business functions. So everything's based off of, either one person knows this, so they know how to do it, or, Billy Sue has been in the office for 13 years and she just knows everything. And that's not good, because Billy Sue can't scale.
Yeah. And, but you can't scale Billy Sue.
Yeah. You can't scale intuition, and you can't scale intuition. Recall.
So I think that's a thing that I want to talk about in the painting industry, because in other industries as well, I think majority of the owners that you've interacted with, they're really tied to their skill set, and they can stain, and they can, varnish, and they can do all these incredible things, and they get frustrated when they can't scale their business. And I think one thing that I've ran into is that they hold entry-level employees to the same standard, not entry-level, maybe just those to the same standard that they have, and expect the same similar results. And I think that's what's prohibiting their growth, is because they can't duplicate themselves and duplicate the quality. So they feel like they need to be doing everything, or else it won't be done correct. Do you find that to be true?
I think there's a truth to trade-offs as you grow, and I'll get into those. But For me, that was not a challenge because I'm not that great of a painter. So it was very easy to find people who were much better at me. And I think,
Okay.
The likelihood that any individual is the absolute best is probably low at anything. So you can't find someone that's as good or better than you is probably not accurate. Now, can you recruit them? Do they want to work for you? That's probably a hard no in most cases. And how do you get that to be a yes is the challenge. For the trade-offs, though, I think something that we all struggle with is when you're small and nimble. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being small. That's a great thing. You can be very, very professional, be very small.
Agreed.
I just want to speak to that ethos of professionalizing your profitability, your lifestyle, all those things can be achieved very well. But if you want to scale and if you want to grow, there are trade-offs. And one of them is you will get oftentimes less nimble and in some ways less efficient. And I was on a call with a guy this morning, Mr. Dave Theobald Scaturo out of New Jersey. And we were just talking through, sometimes you have to be willing to make those trade-offs and say, you know what, we are going to be less nimble, but we can scale. And we are going to be less efficient in these individual roles, but now we have a stable structure. And I think mentally acknowledging the costs and accepting them is a lot easier than trying to gloss over them and only focus on the positives.
So when you say less nimble, what I'm assuming is you're saying, well, in a sense, I believe that you're saying like less versatile. Can we put that in that category where you're trying to create a system that you can duplicate? So for example, if you're trying to coach someone into, hey, in order to scale your business, maybe you can't take on everything. Maybe you should just focus on starting with one project and perfect that system. Is that kind of how you scaled? Like, did you have this one project you guys were like super good at and then just grew from there?
Yeah, I think you're touching right on it. So niching, every company should have their niching day when they settle on what they're going to be great at.
Right.
And for Paris Painting, that's exterior repaints.
Really? Even up north, that's your niche. Wow.
So that's an interesting. We are really good at exterior repaints in a state that has 7 months of winter.
That's crazy.
And you think that'd be a really hard thing to scale.
Sure.
But it's stacking our chips and what we're good at. And I think this is a conversation I had on your group earlier this week, which is, what are you good at, right? And build a business model around that. We are just really, really good at complex scheduling and logistics and operations. Wow. And so we stack our chips there because it's a very, very hard problem to solve. And
but once solved, you pretty much dominate the market.
Yeah, nobody solves it as good as we do at all.
Yeah,
right. Wow. We are trending to be the largest. We're trending to be the largest paint purchaser from Sherwin-Williams in the state, right? Wow. And that's including commercial and industrial. So we are. It's very, very hard to do what we do.
Including commercial and industrial. You guys, as a residential only painting contractor, are on pace to be the number one.
We're painting over 1,600 homes. All
right, so where's Sherwin-Williams sending you this year for vacation? Just curious.
We have a great relationship with Sherwin-Williams. I really do. I appreciate them. They have a phenomenal team, and I know we just feel like they have our back, and so we really like them.
Agreed.
Our CFO is very good at negotiating with them, and it's there's the trips, there's the rebates, there's the price, there's the swag, there's the just being a team.
It's important.
And you have to take all those things into consideration.
It is. It's loyalty because they are a business too, and we're their customers. Sometimes we think because they're so big that like we, but
we're kind of their employees. We're selling
essentially. Yeah, we are an extension of them. I love that, and they do take care of it. I just with that accolade there, man, that's awesome. You deserve it. So, kind of transitioning here, I love the fact that you hit on. We have a lot of people that are up north, right, and they can't seem even as Jason. I'm talking 100 to 200,000 a year in revenue to really crack the code of sustaining through the winter, and it could just be because they don't know where to start. So please, at your most basic level, please travel back in time with me, man. Go back to the very beginning and help our audience here understand what the strategy should be for them, trying to at least just get through the winter and stay busy. Because I'm sure the principles are the same, right? Even at 1,600 houses a year, the principles are probably the very same, very low, correct?
Yeah, I think it's fair to acknowledge that that's a hard problem, and not everyone is going to solve it. Now, I'd say on the exterior season, you don't have to put in much effort to get your work. It kind of falls into your lap, and most guys book out for the summer pretty quick, and you're really not used to doing effort. And that's not a way to get results when you want to do hard things.
Right.
And so if you feel like you're just going to fall into results by not putting in hard effort, that's not going to win.
Right.
Now, if you want to put in the effort, I mean, it's hard to do, but the most basic things are stack your chips on what's winning. That's going to be different in every single market, depending on your brand position. And so it's not like there's a secret code for us. It's really, where did the cheese move? And you got to stack your chips on wherever it moved today or tomorrow. And we have a really smart guy that manages that stuff. If I were going to put myself back at day 1, day 2, day 3, I would just say be willing to get gritty and get humble. And there's nothing wrong with knocking on doors and saying, can I give you a quote to do an interior painting this year? Right? That's how I started my business, just knocking on doors. And
wow,
I am not an extrovert, and I did not love doing that, but it's how I started because
hey, you did it.
It's what I had to do. Right.
Right.
So that would be my advice: is get gritty, get humble, stack your chips. Obviously, there's always, start planning early, hit your client list up, all those good things. But yeah,
huge,
that'd be my advice.
Huge. I love it, man. And I think that, when you put it into perspective like that, I don't think everybody has the goal of getting that big. I think some just want to replace their job and become a business owner.
Ooh,
that's
I like that.
First step,
I like that.
Right.
Phrase.
So yeah, man. I mean, I feel like, if you're coming to work every day and you're just bombarded by everything, I did this thing where I say, hey, if you had to outline all of your responsibilities for a business owner, I mean, we're talking answering the phone, picking up paint, driving to the job. Some of us put samples on the wall. Some of us do touch-ups. Then we actually got to perform the work. Then we got to answer the phone while performing the work. Then we got to go to the estimate, like probably over 30 tasks easily that are never being done efficiently. So for me, what I'm hearing out of you, you even mentioned this subtly again. I'm going to try to bring you back down to our level here, man, because I love that on a large stage you're dialed into this, because I haven't seen anyone doing it like this yet. I haven't spoken to anyone, so I'm very humbled to be here with you. Number one, you said you have a CFO. Okay. CFO is somebody that's managing your finances, negotiating your prices, probably overseeing payroll. Is that their responsibility as well in the company?
He has like an admin assistant that does the.
So he's delegating. So like essentially like what you really are at the core is a master delegator. Would you say that fits the mold?
I think delegation, but also aligning team incentives and empowering people to be extremely motivated. And This is not a me thing. This is a we thing. And that's kind of one of our ethoses of corporate culture is honor in all directions. And just making sure that it's never about me. It's about we.
The team. Yeah. I love that, man. I love that. And putting people in positions to succeed.
Yeah. He's way better than I am. So it's not hard. Again, this is like another easy thing. It's like, gosh, I have an economics degree. I like spreadsheets and all those things, but he is like,
he's already good. And that says a lot. If for someone like you that's coming in saying, hey, this is something I like, and I'm giving that role to somebody else. And I think if we had to look at a pie chart of the owners of painting businesses, I would, and you can maybe agree with me, 95% you would say are actually people that their number one skill is painting, right? Would you agree?
99%.
99, even higher. And then the 1%,
1% of residential companies get above $1 million. And at that point,
that's crazy. Actually, that's a good stat. So so like guys like us who have a sales and marketing mind and can create these systems, for us, it's easy to plug somebody into the role of production because that's not our strength, it's like
that's the first thing you let go of. Yeah.
I would love to give somebody the painting, and that was easy for me. Like, hey, you can paint, cool, go. Why is it so hard though for the guys, the 99%, to actually give up what they're great at? And you just told me I like spreadsheets. I'm into economics, but I was able to pass the baton to somebody else. What was that there that allowed you to do that? Because I think if we can solve that problem, that opens up the floodgates for a lot of people to free themselves. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. Thinking through it, I'd say one, you do have to create value somewhere else. And so you have a business model that typically is not excessive margins. You should be very profitable. You should be making a good net. But this is not like selling key lime pies, right? These are a little bit house painting businesses. So if you're going to step out of something and delegate, you do have to provide value somewhere else. And that isn't always available for every person that becomes a solopreneur. right?
Right.
The
Right.
best place they can provide value is in painting, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think one, you have to make sure you provide value somewhere else. And then second, have that humility to say, it's your show. You're going to get the glory. In this case, like I used to be the hotshot all-star painter, and now you get the glory at the house. And the client is like, yeah, Billy's the best. Right.
Yeah.
And Johnny, who's the owner, like, yeah, it was nice. I met Johnny, did the sales, but Billy, man, he gets
Billy
the
took
honor
care
today.
of me. Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying essentially being okay with dishing out that credit, getting rid of the ego involved, and just saying, hey, put that credit on the team, gives them ownership, gives them a feeling of belonging.
A lot of people, their business is their identity. And this is another thing.
Yeah.
You have a great group. You just have a great group. The conversations you generate are great. I did this on another chat on your ones where it's like, I forget what the topic was, but it was like, you do not need to be your company, because the danger there is you have a good year. It's a boom economy. Everything's rocking. You're like, gosh, I'm pretty hot stuff today. Right. It's like, no, like your business is hot stuff. That's true.
Your business is.
But how do you value yourself, and what is your identity, and all those things? Flip side would be you have a bad week, you get a bad review or something, or a job, you lose money, and you're like, I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
I personally don't have value. And you're like, no, that's not true. That's your company has not had a great week. That's
so separate your identity from your company. And I think when you do that, you can make more decisions that aren't so much emotionally tied. Not saying that's a bad thing.
I think it's healthy, but it's a hard thing because most of us are not very creative. We use our last name and then the trade that we're doing. So that's what a lot of trades companies are.
Hard to separate. It's definitely hard to separate for sure.
But it's healthy too. And then you can start to view it as a business, and it's not, what do I want today? It's what are the needs of the business. And,
well, your last name's kind of versatile.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
So, it is a little bit versatile. I like that.
I never thought I'd be doing this more than like a summer. So maybe I would have chosen something different. It has a good alliteration to it. Yeah.
Where was the turning point though? Like, I mean, for me, I'm only doing 250 houses a year. Okay. There's lot. Like this threshold.
It's like 1% of, or like,
I'm grateful for what we're accomplishing here, but like, there's still this threshold where I'm like, man, like when I hit to 3 crews, that adds about 125 houses. And all I'm thinking is like, okay, now I have to hire upper management, because like, this is what I can handle without upper management. I have one supervisor. He bounces between the crews, sales. Okay. After that, there's this point of upper management, and I'm learning this in Dripjobs because I'm creating a culture and a system and all this, and we're creating the roles to be fulfilled. And what I've learned in business is that you can't hire somebody without clear-cut roles, responsibilities, structures, outcomes, and goals, or they're going to fail. And I think there was a point you probably had to sit down and say, okay, here is the responsibility of a project manager from start to finish. Now, is that something you're just disciplined in doing and able to monitor the results to make sure that you're getting value out of the money that you're paying for this role? Like, can you tell me about that? Like how you're doing that as each role gets created in your company? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. First, I'll say, like, you should do that. If you don't do it, it can work. You're just going to spend a lot of money. So that's the flip side.
Yeah, it's about a waste of time.
Or you're paying someone to be a driver, right? And you're saying, you're going to figure this out. I think I'm okay at it. I did it in the early years, and I was pretty in tune with that. Now it's like another humility piece. We have a president who runs the company, and that's like, frick, he's better at running the company than I am. And that's kind of like, it could be an ego shot, or you can have the humility and say, gosh,
if I'm going to look experience, at this, or did he turn into a president?
Yeah. So I grew up, I knew him in college, and we both did little painting companies of the student variety back then. Okay. And then he stayed on for a long time and got quite a bit of corporate experience managing a large kind of franchise-ish unit of painting companies. So, so he has a lot of experience, and he's very, very talented, and he is by far the most productive human I've ever met. He's very, very good. So he runs the company. He's the one that's really professionalizing and scaling. So it's really empowering him. So sorry, but I'm not like an all-star.
So he's a driver. He's what you call a driver, right?
In the traction model, he would be the integrator.
Yeah. So he creates those systems now.
Yeah. And he is,
I love the higher level thinking here.
He left. So we recruited him. He got because he left the role he was in and then did consulting for franchise units or franchisors. And so he would come in with his methodical mind and find where their weaknesses and where they needed to put the resources and what the true root issue was. And so like the stuff that he does, it's like bullet points and bullet points and bullet points. And like, he's a very brilliant human being. And we were talking about delegation and like putting the brush down is a challenge for people. Taking your sales hat off and acknowledging that a team of people are better at selling than you.
Giving up the keys to your company was a little difficult too, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, in some ways it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it was easy because it was like, great, I don't have to worry about anything. I don't talk to customers. Like, give me our quarterly updates. And as long as it looks good, board approves it. But there's certainly an ego shot that comes with that. And that is a mental game, even if you acknowledge that you have to wrestle with.
How many people are in your organization total?
Top line. So we structure things a little unique too. So we have shared resources. We have a holdings company. So we have a painting division, like a repair and remodeling division, and then a little in-house marketing and flyer distribution company that services our business units, but then also a handful of others in the Twin Cities. Okay. So we have a lot of shared resources. There's between like 30 and 40 overhead staff that are in the office. And then we have project managers, sales reps, and 99% of our labor is subcontracted. And so there's just a handful of W-2 guys and gals in the field.
How do you now? Are you taking on new subcontractors constantly, or do you just have long-standing relationships?
Well, we did 5.2 million last year, and we're going to do 9 million this year. So we are truly in the scaling mode at Paris Painting, right? That's a big jump. I don't think I've ever heard a jump like that, but we're trending for 12, right? We're trending for 12. We made the safe call at 9. That's what we set our budgets at. So we're going to spend to 9 because we're trending for 12. But we had some anomalies in Q1, largely that we did more interior painting than we've ever done because that was a board initiative that came to diversify and do more interior painting. So it calls at 9. That's a big jump. And so no, like those are not all the same people. They're like majority new subcontractors.
Let's talk about expansion. Has that came across the table of expanding or franchising? What's the focus?
So the Twin Cities are, I mean, it's a big market, right? It's like, you could do a lot, but we are the major player here. And there will come a point where it's not really about capping out a market share, but at some point you do cap out your marketing spends efficiency. And so that's really the metrics that we're watching. We have ID'd a couple of satellite.
You haven't had that tipping point yet where it makes sense.
Not yet. We'll probably stabilize, who knows, in that $12-15 million range for the Twin Cities. And then you do look to go regional. And there's a couple of satellite communities in the Twin Cities. There's one called Rochester. There's one called St. Cloud. They're both within driving distance, but they are separated as far as who is going to work between those different areas. You don't get painters crossing town to either one. And then you do start to do regional plays. And then the way that those are vetted out is ultimately TBD. The preference is always to leverage capital and experience to reduce the timeline and the risk. And so there's a couple of things. We do our holdings company will be becoming more public at the end of Q3, early Q4. We are sponsoring the residential forum for the Painting Contractors Association. So we'll be presenting there.
All right, right on.
But looking to partner and take minority equity positions, at least to start, and build assets with drivers who can help us speed up our time horizon if we were to do it on our own and reduce the risk.
Wow. So essentially, looking from this is way above, I'll be honest, way above my head. Okay. And that's good because I love hearing this stuff because it gets my brain churning really of like, you think about
I don't think it's above your head. I think it's just above your exposure. And I think
exposure. There's way above my exposure, which is awesome because I'm being exposed to it right now. So this is good. But what's cool is that like, when you think of a painting company, right, you can't touch it. It's not like a tangible thing, but you've created tangibility. And I think that's what I value most is you've created something that could be handed over and valued at a certain amount, which is the epitome of success in our industry, I believe, is to create something that's turnkey. And would you say that you've done that?
So I would say two comments. One, absolutely. So I'm a shareholder. My equity produces value regardless of my efforts in this business. I don't have any role in the day-to-day of Paris Painting. I operate at a board level. And then I'm very, very in tune with what Olive Holdings is going to be doing in the upcoming years. So you talked about owning a job and then getting from a job to owning a business. A business is where your people and processes produce you revenue, but you're still the leader. You still have to drive it. At some point, you become a shareholder. And let's say you own stock in Coca-Cola. That stock is going to provide a return of equity growth to you, regardless of you don't work at Coca-Cola, right? Regardless of your efforts. And so what we have generated what is a true asset, and it's equity, provides value regardless of the effort. That's a challenging place to get to.
Place to get to.
Yeah,
Very
it's a challenging place.
Impressive place to get to. And so what do you do throughout the day, man? Do you just go on podcasts?
Yeah. So my role is pretty ambiguous right now. It's like technology. So we have custom software. That's been probably my passion. I think that's one reason that's helped us scale a lot as well.
Love it.
And so
got to have the system.
Pretty tied into that, working with the dev team, making sure it rocks well. We're building out basically the integrations of that. We do plan to do minority partnerships in different markets and license out the Wallogy and Playbook. And so that is something that I'm pretty tied into. But I love coming to work. The guys that I work with make me better people, and they're fun to hang out with.
So in terms of minority partnerships, essentially what you're doing is you would buy a piece of companies in exchange for your systems processes, right?
Yeah, so it's an interesting model. So most companies are not worth anything, just to call that out, outside of their assets and maybe a client list, because you'd value buying a job. And the people that do that are usually mid-level corporate burnouts who get sold on the repaid ability of, or the repaid nature of a painting client. And they usually crash and burn, right? If you look through the disclosure documents. Yep.
Sorry, I was losing you, man. Your mic.
I'm probably leaning too far back.
Yeah, stay close.
I'm getting excited. So
we're missing the good stuff.
So I just talked about, what was your question?
My question was, no, you got sidetracked. No problem. Yeah. So my question was, looking at, I forget my question, man. I was trying to figure out, where were we?
Oh, we were talking about regionalization, minority equity, what it's in exchange for. Yeah.
So we were talking about, we were jumping into you buying equity in companies in exchange for your systems.
Yeah, exchange for systems. Wallogy,
and you were saying that no one has equity in their company. They don't have a valuation.
But you want, and most people, they don't. Yeah, systems are only as good as the driver. What most people want. What I've had success with is getting operating partners, right? People who have aligned incentives to grow the equity of your company, of a mutual asset, to a stage that it makes sense to either do a sunset and take a buyout, or potentially do an equity swap.
Are you providing funding or no?
I mean, we have a lot of cash if anybody needs funding. I don't know if funding is a major driver. So, I mean, painting businesses are great cash on cash returns. Funding usually is not a big driver. Banks are usually, if you're in a position where you're actually going to scale and you're a real business, banks are pretty open to lending those lines of credit, especially right now. Cash is really cheap. But yeah, I think those are all interesting components. And then you look at the sunset clause of, what does it look like to take care of me through a sunset, or we through an ESOP, and then an equity exchange, to where you change your 3 to 4x multiple on a smaller business unit to now it suddenly becomes 6 to 8 when it gets rolled into a larger holdings. Those are the like value generations that are super exciting.
So usually an average painting company is a 1x multiplier, right? Would you agree?
I mean, 3 to 4. I mean, so most companies are
3 to 4 on sales or profit?
Well, on net profit.
On net, okay. Is it always on net when they're
or
calculating
EBITDA?
Usually?
I mean, typically, when you say always, I mean every deal is whatever somebody wants to spend. But if you work with brokers or you're tied into that community, it's a 3 to 4x multiple for what the net profit
is for. Is it an average of years or is it on a big year?
I mean, it depends if you're scaling up or scaling down. Those are when you get into negotiations. You typically look at the past year and then say, well, is that an anomaly or is that stable? And then negotiate from there. But you kind of have that class of EBITDA, it's 3 to 4x. But then when you hit that $2 million threshold, you enter into a new asset class. And that's kind of the value, like I was saying, of rolling into a larger holdings company. If you want to take care of the we versus me, suddenly you just create value by becoming a larger net EBITDA
entity. Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And in terms of holding company, let's break that down. So essentially, let me paraphrase and then you correct me if I'm wrong. Holding company is essentially a bigger company on top of your painting company that manages multiple entities, correct?
So, all right. So we have Olive Holdings and then we have Olive Management. Olive Holdings is an asset holder. Olive Management manages and runs the assets. It's kind of like you would do with apartment complexes, right? Most people, they would own some real estate and they would hire a management company to deliver a return on that asset.
Mm-hmm.
And then you negotiate that. That's kind of a yearly contract. So right now we negotiate with ourselves to say, here's the target, here's the profitability that's going to be returned to the shareholders, and what's that worth, right? So here's an X dollar contract to go run, a $16 million business unit, and we expect this return from it, and we'll split the upside in this manner. And then you check in monthly and you do your quarterly trends, and sometimes the management team will come back and say, we'd like to renegotiate. We think we can, go from a 7.5 million return or million revenue in painting to a 9, and we'd like to seek additional funding for these roles. And the asset holders may say, no, I would like to play it safe. Or they may say, yeah, we believe in you guys and we think you're going to do it. And we like to.
What I love is the separation, Jason. Like, here's the thing. Like, even though that you're negotiating with yourself, the separation is what I love. Even though you're standing here, like, and obviously, maybe later down the line, you won't be negotiating with yourself. That's the goal, right?
No, that's the plan. Yeah,
that's the plan, right? So you don't want to be doing that. But eventually, as of right now, you're playing the role of this negotiation process where you're allocating resources dependent on really projections that you've. Probably really weird this year with that major jump, right? Like, how do you even project next year?
Well, it is a fun negotiation because you want to think of the precedent setting as well. Because at some point, we do want to hire a management team and strictly become asset holders, but you do have to wear both sides of the hat.
That's the fun part, right?
On one side, you're like, what do you mean? I'm growing your equity by this much, and you want your equity to grow and cash on cash return? Like, get out of here. And then you put your hat on the other side. And you're like, well, what about the PPP? Get that out of your mouth. That's mine, not yours.
Yeah. So when you look at it, it has to be. And I think the market, here's what I've experienced. This is my mindset about what happened. And I think that last year, the people who wanted to get their house painted obviously held off, right? So they were just like, no, I'm not doing it because of COVID. And then this year, those people decided that they wanted it done. And then the people who were planning on doing it this year wanted it done. So we're experiencing like a duplicate demand. Would you agree with that? Do you think that's far off?
I think there's a potential for that. I think that's a part of it. I think we saw that in kind of 2010 through 14. There's a lot of deferrals from the years past where there's kind of built up demand.
It's cyclical, right? It's cyclical. Everyone has the idea that they want it done. If you own a house, right?
Yeah, there is. And I think that affects, maybe less sophisticated model or business plans where you're really dependent on those cycles to hit you. But on the macro scale, it's like an abundance economy out there because there's such a disparity between supply and demand of the demand of painting needs, regardless of the cycles are this high, the supply, regardless of the cycles are this low.
Right? Are you trending down in your marketing? Are you trending down in your marketing expense? Let me start there. Like, if you look at it, are you spending less on marketing this year than you did last year?
As a percent, yeah, it's weird.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Because if you're spending less on your marketing this year, it's simple, and you probably have data to look years past, so you're probably seeing that like, this is weird, and I think that's what it is. I'm not sure. That's my theory because I'm hardly spending anything on marketing right now. Yeah,
it just comes in and
it's just coming. Phone's ringing like crazy. Like I can't even keep up with it, and it's great, But I'm just saying, man, I hope this. I want it to last. I hope this ripple effect continues into next year.
It's interesting too. Like obviously, the phone ringing is important, and sales are important, but that's hardly ever the constraint of a painting company. Right. That's usually not. So like we put all this mental focus on like, oh, is demand high or low? It's like, well, like. Does it matter? Can you execute like, let's say you do get more calls in.
Execution.
Are you going to be able to deliver that, right? Sales are for show, production's for dough. And can you actually do it?
That's getting locked in. Okay. I like that one. Normally it's, what is it? Profits for vanity or no, sales is for vanity, profit for sanity or one of those ones. I've heard of that one.
Anything that's an alliteration. A+.
Yeah. The alliteration, man. It's funny. I love it, man. Jason, dude, I've got a lot of respect for what you're doing and glad to have you part of our group. Even more thankful to have you on this podcast, man. I learned a lot. Thank you for the exposure of what that. I mean, you're going. So I'm afraid maybe next year, I don't even know what's going to happen, but I'm sure it's going to be great, man. So thank you
We'll
for
find
joining
out.
us today,
Yeah.
man. I really appreciate it. And you're
Good.
part of
Thanks
the
for doing it.
PCA. So
So I'll give the
you
plug.
want to hit on that?
So yeah, Painting Contractors Association is a nonprofit entity. It's underwritten by all the major paint manufacturers, really to benefit the members and also benefit the industry. And so it's something that people join. It's obviously a low cost for the value that's provided because it's underwritten. But yeah, it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. Like to give back, like to volunteer in that capacity. This year I've stepped into the chair role, and so I'm the chair of the association. And Nick Slavic, who many people know, I'm sure you know,
Yes.
is our vice chair. And yeah, so
what's the
PCA
initiative for you guys? So what is, if you had one major initiative to kind of, because I know it probably revolves, right? It's every like 4 years they probably pick someone new, or maybe you get reelected. Hopefully, I don't know if that's your goal, but
we'll
what
see
is
if I
like
get
the initiative?
reelected.
Yeah. So
we'll
what do you think? Like, what's the
and
thing?
then-
If you're trying to make a change in the industry, you know, what's that like? What's that thing, man? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, it's going to be about professionalizing paint businesses, going from owning a job to owning a company, and how do you cross that chasm? And so that's my major initiative.
I think of all the trades, we have the chance of actually being looked at as a superior trade, man. First, the other ones can follow suit. I'm just saying, painting contractors, man.
It's weird that it hasn't happened yet, and it's going to happen. And you've seen this in pretty much every other industry that has gotten professionalized. And I think one of the big catalysts of that happening is when people start realizing their equity. And right now, a lot of bright minds are not getting into painting. They don't want to run painting businesses because
they look at it like,
want to build equity. They want to build equity, right? And it's got good cash on cash returns, but you just don't hear many stories of like a lot of liquidity happening in this market. And I think, in this industry. I think once you start to see that, that'll open the floodgates of bringing professionalization in. Same time, we also want to build it up, right? That's kind of where it has to start. But I think we've seen it in farming. You've seen it in coffee shops.
Agreed.
Yeah. You've seen it in the financial sector, right? Where it's super fragmented, pretty mom and pop. And then you start to get a little bit of a roll up, and suddenly there's a lot of private equity that's.
And by equity and just kind of breaking this down, you know, equity, you mean essentially creating an asset for yourself. That's the first step. And then you create an asset for others, you know, and when you can create an asset for others, that's when the fun happens. And that's, I believe, what you're doing.
I think Elon Musk, he owns like less than 10% of Tesla, right? It's a lot of value for other people.
That is a lot of value for other people.
It's a lot of value for other. Same thing with Jeffrey Bezos, right? He owns a very small percentage of Amazon. That's a lot of equity and value for a lot of people. Amazing. Generated.
Yeah. Wow. This is fun. We're all in business. We just happen to be doing painting.
Yeah. Painting's the best, like you said, right?
Love it.
But I think you have to be passionate about it too, right? There's a lot of people in a lot of different businesses, and people that run painting companies, they're passionate people.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a really good thing. And try to mesh that passion with professionalization. I think that's where you just get like everything aligns.
It aligns. Awesome, man. Jason, thank you for your time, my friend. Hopefully, you know, maybe we can check in a couple months from now. I'd love to have you back.
Good. Hope I run into you.
Yes, sir. All right. Thanks, man. Dripjobs CRM is finally here. That's right. So Dripjobs is an automation platform for contractors, home service professionals that's going to automatically follow up with your customers. It's going to allow you to send invoices, estimates. It's going to allow you to send out blast marketing emails to individuals based on where they are in the buying process. This software is next level. And I'm reaching out to you. You're a listener of this podcast, and I want you to be one of the first ones to give it a shot. So if you want to see what Dripjobs can do for your business, I'd love for you to head over to dripjobs.com, sign up for a free demo, and get your team involved, and let us sit with you and show you how powerful this software is. It's going to save you time, it's going to make you money, and you're going to love the features that are built into Dripjobs. So if you want to check it out, head over to dripjobs.com, and we will give you first priority being a podcast listener to be one of the very first to try out Dripjobs in your home service business. I'm super excited to share that with you, and I'll catch you on the next episode.